Go back 30,000 years. You are living in a small group of maybe 20 or 30 people. You sleep on animal skins. You eat what you kill or gather. Every single day involves some form of danger. And yet, somewhere in that brutal world, a human looked at an animal and thought something other than food. That thought, that strange, irrational impulse to keep rather than eat, may be one of the oldest and most distinctly human things that has ever happened. The first animal to cross that line was the wolf. Not the soft, domesticated dog you know today. The wolf, lean, dangerous, built for killing. And yet the relationship between humans and wolves may stretch back 100,000 years, not because humans captured them, because wolves chose to come closer. The boldest wolves, the ones least afraid of firelight, discovered something useful. Human camps produced scraps, bones, fat, leftover meat that nobody wanted. These wolves hung around the edges of camps and survived better than their shyer cousins, and humans noticed something useful in return. Those wolves barked when predators came near. They tracked animals during hunts. They could smell things no human nose could detect. This was not a rescue. This was not kindness. This was two species recognizing that the other was useful. And slowly, over thousands of generations, that relationship changed. The wolves that tolerated humans survived better. Their pups grew up around human fires. Some of those pups were fed deliberately. Some slept close to human bodies for warmth on cold nights. And somewhere in that slow, gradual process, the wolf began to become something else entirely. The dog, the first animal in all of human history that a person ever genuinely kept as a companion rather than livestock or prey. But it did not stop with wolves. Archaeological sites across Europe and Asia have found the remains of fox cubs, bear cubs, and deer fawns buried alongside humans, not eaten, buried. With care, researchers examining ancient campsites have found evidence of young animals kept alive long past the point where they were useful as food. A bear cub raised inside a camp, a young deer that lived among humans for months, a fox skeleton found curled beside a human burial in a position that suggests it was placed there deliberately, the way you might place something precious. These were not accidents. Prehistoric humans were bringing young animals back from hunts and keeping them, not always understanding why, not always with a plan, but doing it anyway because something in the human brain responds to large eyes and helpless young in a way that overrides the more logical calculation. That impulse has a name today. Researchers call it the baby schema effect. Large eyes, round faces, small bodies, and clumsy movements trigger a caregiving response in humans that is almost impossible to suppress. A wolf pup crawling toward a campfire triggered the exact same response in a prehistoric human that a kitten photo triggers in you now. The hardware has not changed. Only the context has.
There were also birds. Evidence from multiple ancient sites suggests that prehistoric humans kept birds, not for eggs or meat, but for their calls, their colors, and possibly for companionship. A colorful feather in the hair, a bird that called from inside the camp and made the place feel alive. Ravens, in particular, appear repeatedly in archaeological sites alongside human remains in ways that suggest something beyond simple utility. Ravens are intelligent. They can mimic sounds. They remember individual humans. A raven that lived near a prehistoric camp would have recognized the people there, responded to them differently, and possibly formed something that looked remarkably like a relationship. And then there were the animals nobody expects, insects. Specifically, bees. Evidence from ancient sites suggests that prehistoric humans understood bee behavior well enough to track hives across large distances and return to them repeatedly, not just for honey, though honey was enormously valuable, but possibly because the hive itself, the constant hum, the purposeful movement, the warmth of a living colony held something that humans found worth returning to. Some researchers believe early human relationships with bee colonies represent one of the oldest forms of managed animal interaction in existence. But here is what all of this reveals about the humans who lived in those caves. Wrapped in animal skin, eating whatever the day provided, they were not purely practical.
They were not simple survival machines who calculated every calorie and every risk. They looked at a wolf pup stumbling around the edge of their camp and felt something. They carried a fawn back from a hunt instead of eating it and spent weeks feeding it by hand. They noticed that a particular raven kept returning to their camp and started leaving scraps out deliberately. These behaviors cost something: time, food, energy, all things that were genuinely scarce. And they did it anyway, because the human brain, even 30,000 years before the internet, before cities, before any of the things we associate with civilization, was already wired for connection. Not just connection with other humans, connection with other living things. The cave bear sleeping near the fire, the wolf pup that learned to recognize one particular human face, the raven that came back every morning. Your pet is not a modern luxury. It is an ancient inheritance. The dog at your feet is the descendant of a wolf that chose to come closer to a fire 30,000 years ago. And the feeling you have when you look at it, that warm, irrational, completely impractical feeling, that feeling is just as old. It was there in the cave, around the fire, in the dark, long before there was a word for any of it.